Hello and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as good as FDR's, but hey, it's something. No need for any of the delays and the mumbo jumbo or whatever. Let's just get right into all this stuff because there's been quite a few things, actually. Let's start out with the biggest thing, I guess you could arguably say. The squad has endorsed Bernie. Well, I mean, all but one. Ilhan Omar and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez endorsed Bernie Sanders. Now, Rashida technically has yet to endorse, but it's strongly implied that she will endorse because she's going to be appearing at a Bernie rally. So, I mean, it's pretty obvious that she's going to endorse. Now, Ayanna, nobody's really heard of her, and to be honest, I don't even expect Ayanna Pressley to endorse. I honestly don't. She endorsed Hillary Clinton last time, so I find it highly unlikely that she'll endorse Bernie this time around. I'll go more in depth about that when I break it down, but, you know, here's what people have seemed to notice. There are really two crowds of people that are talking about this endorsement. The Bernie people / real news people, who are not stupid, who are like, it makes sense for these two to endorse Bernie because they were inspired to run by Bernie. Their ideologies mostly relating to Bernie. These women are pretty much directly tied to Bernie, ergo they would endorse him for president. Then there's the other crowd of people who, for some reason, are completely flabbergasted on the idea that these two would endorse Bernie. They're like, you had women? You had people of color? You had women of color? And you choose to endorse the old white man? It'd be as if these two endorsed Trump. Like, they would probably be like, oh, I mean, with Trump I get... They'd make an excuse for Trump, or they'd make an excuse for Biden. They'd make an excuse for everybody except for Bernie. There was no other candidate they could have endorsed. These two were directly inspired to run because of Bernie. Rashida too. Like, there's literally no other candidate they should have endorsed. And now I know a lot of people in the media are saying, well, I mean, why didn't they endorse Warren, or why didn't they dual endorse, or blah, blah, blah. Like, some stupid bullshit like that. Like, was Warren the one who ran in 2016 and started a political movement? No. She didn't. She sat quietly and fiddled her thumbs and hedged her bets. She hedged her bets on Hillary to pick her as VP, or she hedged her bets on Bernie so she could probably be VP there as well. Either way, she probably would have been in consideration for VP if either of those two candidates won. Which she was. We saw that Hillary Clinton put her on the short list for people to be her VP candidate. I mean, she didn't win it because, I mean, I guess Hillary thought that Warren was just too radical or something, or some bullshit like that. I don't know. It just makes logical sense for AOC and AOC and Ilhan to endorse Bernie, especially considering out of the squad, these two are seen as the most outspoken of the squad. Like, if you rank them based on outspokenness, it'd probably be Ilhan, AOC, Rashida, and then Ayanna. Like, I mean, Ayanna's kind of been the... She got in the squad by virtue. She got in the squad literally by virtue. She was also a Justice Democrat she was also endorsed by Justice Democrats, and I think she was endorsed by one of the other groups. I don't remember. But she just got there based on a fluke. Like, I mean, let's just briefly analyze these four women's situations. Because each of these women have a different situation in regards to who they are and how they got to where they are today. Rashida was replacing John Conyers, who was a DSA member in Congress. John Conyers was retiring due to sexual harassment allegations. That's how Rashida got there. She won a primary to get there. And then, since it was a deep blue district, there was not even a Republican candidate that was running against her, so she just won. Ilhan Omar was replacing Keith Ellison, who was running for Attorney General. Keith Ellison is also a really progressive candidate, but he wanted to run for Attorney General for some reason, even though progressive groups were trying to get him to run for Senate. But Ilhan Omar ran to pretty much be the Rule 63 version of Keith Ellison. Muslim woman who's progressive. So these two, they didn't really have an active primary process. I mean, they did, because Rashida, she was running against the incumbent who won a special election, Brenda Jones, and was also running against John Conyers' nephew. So that primary process was a bit contentious, and Ilhan's was probably contentious as well, but most of the people were probably of the same notoriety as her, not really. But the two biggest contention, like the big primary challengers, was Ayanna Pressley versus Mike Capuano, and AOC versus Joe Crowley. These two had an active primary process that was like, we're running against this person who's been here for a long time. Now, AOC, her primary was very big because Joe Crowley was a faux aggressive who was like in a top position within the Democratic Party. Like, he was on his way to becoming the new Nancy Pelosi should the situation come. But lo and behold, AOC, who was outraised 10-1, just, nope, no more Joe Crowley. I'm the congresswoman of this district now. But Ayanna's was different. You see, Capuano was actually a progressive. He had long supported a lot of these progressive policies, had not really been too corporatist in a sense. He was really a decent progressive in the House of Representatives. Yet, Ayanna felt the need to primary him as a progressive Democrat. Now, Ayanna herself stated during the primary that Capuano and her would have pretty much the same voting. Like, the voting record, if she replaced him, would not change. They would vote the same on the same legislation. If you put both of them on a bill, they'd vote the same way. So, why run against him then? Well, you see, it's the Moulton strategy. Though, to be fair, maybe not as bad as the Moulton strategy. You see, the Moulton strategy, as I define it, or the Swalwell strategy, however you want to call it, is where you campaign purely on your race, or your youngness, to be specific, and you offer little to no change, or even change for the worse, in some situations. Like, for example, like Eric Swalwell, he was a corporatist-minded youngin' who was replacing a progressively-minded old Democrat. I keep saying Swalwell for some reason. Moulton was the same thing. He was running as a progressive, like, I'm a young progressive face with new ideas and new bold action. And he was to the right of the incumbent Democrat. So maybe Ayanna pulled that same strategy. And it's a strategy that's still going on with Kai Kahele and Joe Kennedy III. It's kind of a strange strategy, but Ayanna just kind of got in the squad based on a fluke. Especially considering there have been people who are a lot more squad-worthy than Ayanna in some instances. Like, for example, remember that whole Israel vote? Like, you know, where they had this vote to condemn BDS? The vote was very simple. You voted yes, and you said BDS was bad, and you condemned them. They're bad. They're bad people. You voted no, and you said, no, we're not going to condemn these people. People have the right to protest, and blah, 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 blah. Ayanna Pressley joined Ro Khanna and damn it, who's the other one? Tulsi Gabbard. He joined those two. Ayanna joined those two in voting yeah. Meanwhile, there were 17 nays, which include Jesus Chuy Garcia. Now, I personally am a fan of Chuy Garcia and really like Chuy Garcia. His progressive voting record in the House is really solid, was endorsed by Our Revolution and Bernie, and yet he doesn't really get put in this squad category because he's not a young girl. I think, personally, going into the 2018 midterms, my squad was those 4 girls plus Chuy. I even made like a little Photoshop thing of Power Rangers with them with different logos. But anyways, like, inevitably, I don't 100% think that Ayanna Pressley will endorse Bernie. And in regards to the AOC and Ilhan endorsements, these are pretty high-profile endorsements that are definitely going to help Bernie in the primary. And really, the only people that I think are 100% betting are endorsing Bernie are Pramila Jayapal and Chuy Garcia. Like, I made a list of 8 Democrats that I said were going to endorse Bernie. I've only been wrong on 1 so far, and that's Rahul Grijalva, who endorsed Elizabeth Warren for reasons. I don't know why. But anyways, the next story is one that's kind of been covered in the mainstream, but I guess is worth noting. Elijah Cummings died. Elijah Cummings, the son of a sharecropper who was the House Committee chairman, he recently passed away. Now, to be honest, I don't really know much about him. I mean, he's, out of all the members of the House of Representatives, I haven't really been paying attention to Elijah that much. To my understanding about Elijah, he's kind of your average liberal Democrat. You know, like, oh, he'll do a good vote for certain things, but he's not going to be a great vote. Like, he's not going to be an AOC. He's not going to be Alexandria. Like, he's not going to be AOC or Ilhan Omar or Ro Khanna, but he's not going to be, like, he's not going to be a corporatist in a certain sense, but he's not going to be a great Democrat. I mean, the most notable thing that I remember was I saw him in a couple of committee hearings, which he did do a good job in. Although, to be frank, I'll be honest, I made the same mistake as the internet did, but I did it a long time ago and I only did it one time. When I first saw Elijah Cummings at a committee hearing, I was like, oh hey, John Lewis! I didn't know he was the head of a committee. And then I'm like, oh no wait, Representative Cummings is this guy. Oh, hold on, let me go. Elijah Cummings. Oh, my bad. But the day Elijah Cummings died, this is like screwed up to an extent. Like, this is really screwed up sometimes. John Lewis was trending higher than Rip Elijah Cummings, Representative Elijah Cummings. Like, he was trending more than Elijah. And I mean, again, I get it. I made the mistake too one time. But these guys, they weren't even being 100% honest. Like, if they just showed the wrong picture and or said, like, Rip John Lewis, that'd be fine. But there were people who were saying, like, Elijah Cummings, great civil rights legend, R.I.P., or like Representative John Lewis, head of a committee and a civil rights leader, died, R.I.P. It's like, probably didn't help John go through the grief. And in a more recent thing, Elijah is going to be laid at state. Which, I mean, I'm not a fan of, laying politicians in state. But I mean, if George H.W. Bush and John McCain get to be laid in state, and I think Billy Graham was laid to state, if they could be laid in state, then yeah, Elijah should too. Fair is fair. If you're gonna lay shitty people in state, you should probably lay, someone who's at least halfway decent in state. This next story is coming from Seattle. Amazon is spending big to oust Seattle Socialist Council member. Last month, Seattle City Council member Kshama Sawant was the lone woman of color on stage alongside her rival city council candidate Egon Orion and 3 middle-aged white male moderators from a local news station. It took Sawant just 2 sentences to steer the debate to the issue at the center of a re-election campaign, the evils of big corporations. 6 weeks from Election Day, Orion, a self-described progressive liberal, had highlighted the importance of bringing people together. Sawant did not disagree, but replied, "The crucial question is unity and collaboration and coalition with whom? My big opponent is the poster child for big business. He has more corporate money than any candidate in Seattle City Council's history." And it goes on to say that Amazon has spent $1.45 million to influence the city council race to oust Kshama Sawant. Let me say that again. A city council race is spending $1.45 million. No city council race should have that much money put into it. The fact that it is shows there's shady stuff going on. The fact that, look, this thing is the fact that these people, like these are like, he's getting endorsements from his former libertarian opponent. The fact that all these people, like these big corporations, are funneling money to him shows that this guy's fake. Like, the fakeness actually stems from just point one. Why run against Kshama? Like, that's the thing. You could primary people who are legitimately screwed, like people who aren't real progressives. But if you claim to be a progressive and then you're primarying someone who is a progressive, you're not. That's just a simple fact. Like, you can't primary Bernie Sanders and then say, "Oh, I'm a progressive." You can't. That's just not possible. If you claim to, you're lying. So vote Kshama Sawant November 5th. If you're in Seattle, vote for Kshama Sawant. The next story is coming from our brothers across the pond. Boris Johnson agrees Brexit deal with EU. Boris Johnson has agreed a new Brexit deal with the EU after last-ditch talks ahead of the crucial leaders' summit in Brussels. Negotiators worked till 2 a.m. on Thursday to strike the deal, but questions remain on whether it can get enough support to be backed in Westminster. Now, there's more to the story, because apparently there was a vote to see if people would actually support the bill, like people would actually support the Brexit deal, and it turns out he didn't get enough votes to get support in Parliament, but the deal itself is likely to succeed. I don't 100% know the intricacies of it because I'm not a member of the UK. His Brexit deal apparently is just, because I guess it's just due to the fact that at this point, it's that or no deal Brexit. It seems that at this point, that's what it is. And to be fair, I don't think that the people in the UK are going to 100% be in... the thing about the UK and remain and leave the EU is it's so kind of... It's like... The weird thing is it's not even a partisan issue to an extent. It's not like the left agrees on Brexit and the right agrees on remaining, or... it's not like the left agrees on one side and the right agrees on the other. Both sides of the political aisle have different views on Brexit. There are left-wing proposals for Brexit called Legxit. There are right-wing Brexit positions. There's left-wing Remain positions. There's right-wing Remain positions. It's not a left versus right issue. it seems to be just all over the place in regards to political spectrums. It seems that more of the populist groups are advocating for Brexit. But a lot of the more establishment groups are campaigning for Remain, which isn't 100% the case, because the Green Party of England, Wales, and Labour Party are also advocating for remaining in the EU. Again, it's really confusing. So far, here's how the party breakdown is. The Conservative Party, a good majority of its members do support Brexit now. UKIP and the Brexit Party also support Brexit, and so does the Democratic Unionist Party. Sinn Féin, Labour, Liberal Democrats, Scottish National Party, all the other parties advocate for Remain. But, there's also minor parties that advocate for leaving the EU, like the Communist Party of Britain. Pretty much, again, it's a very iffy issue. My personal viewpoint is, if it's going to happen, it's got to be in a best deal possible. Customs Union, the deal that was proposed by Jeremy Corbyn, is probably the best move that you can take in regards to this. There has to be, because there's going to be a lot of trade deals you're going to have to renegotiate, and, you're going to, if these trade deals aren't renegotiated by the time that the Brexit deal lifts up, you just get no deal, and the fact that a no deal, like a party that's not in the EU, and a part of the, pretty much the big thing is Northern Ireland and Ireland. One, they're at each other's throats all the time, but the thing is, they've been able to keep fairly reasonable trade and been able to be sane and blah 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 and not have a violent war going on or anything due to the fact that they're both in the EU. But once one gets out of the EU, things are going to get screwed up, and it's not necessarily going to bode well for the Irelands. So a customs union would be the best move if you're going to have a Brexit at all. Because in my view, I've seen that there's a lot of issues and iffiness with the EU. With the EU leaving the... with Brexit leaving... with Britain leaving the EU, there's a lot of issues because there was a lot of misinformation that was going around. So I feel it's best if there was a second referendum, just so we can be okay, here's a longer voting period, here's a longer period where you can do more research, and before you go in to vote, here's a big booklet that gives you the positives and the negatives for leaving the EU. From a left-wing perspective, from a right-wing perspective, from a person who's not into politics but has a job perspective. And after reading all that, go into the voting booth, vote Remain or leave. And this time around, whatever the position is, we do. Okay? Or we can even make it simple. Have them vote on how they leave the EU. Have them say, do we just leave? Do we do customs union? Do we allow the Great Britain to dissolve so that, certain elements can remain in the EU and some can't? Because the thing about the Britain EU stuff is that England, to my knowledge, it looks like England is the only part of the Great Britain that overwhelmingly voted to leave the EU. And it just so happens that they have more constituencies. Ergo, more people voted to leave the EU. Whereas if you look at, I think maybe Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland voted to remain in the EU overwhelmingly. And Wales and the UK, not the UK, Great England voted to remain. Now, you know what I mean. Certain areas voted to remain and certain areas voted to leave overwhelmingly. But due to the fact that the people who voted to leave were just a little bit more, they all get dragged into this equation. Scotland didn't want to leave the EU, but they gotta leave now. Because they're just Scrudden. That's a new word I made up. But anyways, now on to third-party news that's slightly interesting. Ian Schlakman is boycotting the National Green Party. For months, he's been raising concerns. He's been raising concerns over the big things about the Howie Hawkins campaign. Like, for those who don't know what's going on, here's pretty much what's going on. The Green Party is running a primary, no duh. There are a total of, I think 7 candidates at the moment. The frontrunner is Howie Hawkins. Now, many people have been accusing Howie Hawkins of having favoritism within the Green Party primary, due to the fact that Howie Hawkins seemed to just have, like if you go to his website, you'll see there's a lot of party co-chairs, a lot of prominent members who are endorsing Howie's campaign, where many of the other candidates, like Senator Ian, Dario, and a lot of other candidates are just getting snubbed. And all these candidates have accused the Green Party of playing favoritism towards Howie. Now, some are saying there might be for different reasons, and are trying to delegitimize the Howie Hawkins campaign for different reasons. For example, Senator during the 2016 election, she called out this favoritism in regards to Jill Stein, but last time around she said it was due to white supremacy, but I'm like, not necessarily. I don't think so, but favoritism, you can argue that. And the Green Party has this weird process in regards to how they have their, officially recognizing candidates. And I'm like, do you really need that? You can. It's very easy to do. I think we can tell who's the fake candidate and who's not. Person who ran for governor of Maryland or She-Hulk? Person who co-founded the Black Caucus, tried to run for VP, was the chairperson of one of our presidential campaigns, and ran for president in 2016, or Frogman? It's just hard. I just need a process that allows people to have a certain amount of money to have to be qualified as a Green Party candidate. I don't really see that as being legitimate, especially since the Green Party is a minor party already. They're small people. They're little boys. They don't have the means. You guys don't have the means that the Democratic Party does. Well, to be fair, some of you guys do raise more money than Wayne Messam. But yeah, it turns out Ian Schlakman is boycotting the National Green Party due to a lot of these allegations. And I guess is apparently not running in the Green Party primary anymore. I don't 100% know. But are these claims legitimate? Some yes, some no. But from what I've heard from Kevin Zeese, he doesn't really believe that. I'm not going to go into the depths of the emails because, to be fair, nothing really bad was said in them. If he said, I rigged the primary against Ian Schlakman the whole time, then I'd spill the beans, but he didn't really say anything that was, spill the beans worthy. I did voice my concerns to him directly, and I did give him multiple times to, here are some of the concerns, here's how you can resolve them, this is what you can do to fix all this. Didn't really go anywhere that much, to be honest. But again, I'm fair, he did say that a lot of his stuff was said off the record, so I'm gonna keep a lot of the stuff, not in the public eye. If he said something that was truly evil, or something that was a damning piece of evidence that proved Ian right 100%, I'd spill the beans. But I also said, Kevin, you can actually resolve this very simply by debunking these claims, right? If a lot of these claims are as false as you say they are, you could just easily debunk them. But I mean, whatever Kevin does, Kevin does. It's not really my place. To be fair, I have a thing. I have like a bit of a thing where I'm like, wait, a candidate's being screwed? Might be getting screwed in a primary? 2016 all over again. I need to fix this. Like I do have a bit of that in me, to be honest. And if, like, again, a lot of these concerns I do believe are legitimate to raise. Like, yes, of course you can make accusations that Howie's having favoritism. The Green Party Twitter literally said, okay, we're going to cover Howie Hawkins' campaign. Ian says, hey, can you cover the other Greens? No, and we're not going to cover any Greens now. Are you happy, Ian? It's like, that doesn't solve the problem. It makes you look more guilty. The fact is, the Green Party is making itself look more guilty in a lot of this stuff. If they just listen to the 7 of the Green Party candidates have raised concerns. 1 is dropped out and has still raised the concerns. The fact that 7 people entered the race. 8. 8 people entered the race. 7 of the people are raising concerns that one is being treated more better than the others. And that one saying, no, I'm not. Doesn't that look a bit concerning to you? The fact that the only candidate that isn't complaining is the one that everybody's saying is being the favorite. I mean, doesn't that seem a little eyebrow-raising, to be honest? Anyway, speaking of Greens and BS, let's talk about the recent Hillary Clinton funny haha joke. Hillary Clinton suggested that Jill Stein and Tulsi Gabbard are Russian assets. Yeah, Tulsi supporters have heard this story before. And so have Jill Stein supporters. They've heard this story quite a bit. Now, I'm not even going to go into the lengths of debunking this because there's like a million videos already debunking this because literally none of the statements that were said are true. Jill Stein is not a Russian asset. She is a person who ran for the Green Party nomination twice and won twice. Tulsi Gabbard is a congresswoman and a veteran. But Russian asset is not on their resumes. And the thing is, a lot of people have actually been rushing to the defense of these two. You know, mostly the Green Party has been rushing to the defense of Jill Stein. And Andrew Yang and Marianne Williamson, a lot of these guys were rushing to the aid of Tulsi Gabbard. But the funny thing is that both crowds have, like, a surprising face in it. Like, in the Jill Stein crowd, one of the faces that, for some reason, rushed to defend her was Donald Trump. Trump actually said in a statement, like in a tweet, he said, like, Hillary Clinton is ruining she is smearing the great environmentalist Dr. Jill Stein, who ran for the Green Party nomination for the presidency, or blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I mean, yes, Trump, you're actually correct on this. Every goose has its day, I guess. And the second person in the Tulsi crowd that has rushed to Tulsi's defense is actually a surprising voice, to be honest. Robert Francis O'Rourke. He rushed to Tulsi's defense and actually said, like, I mean, that's just not true. Tulsi's her own person. She served her country well as a veteran. And I'm like, well, Robert, I guess my 2018 endorsement of you wasn't 100% in vain. There was something in there. I guess I just didn't. I guess it just somehow faded away a bit. So yeah, I do think that Bernie should probably raise questions to this as well. But at this point, he hasn't. And it's weird a bit. But anyways, now on to smaller candidate of the day. Ryan von Bevern. Now, I've heard of Ryan von Bevern because he was covered in a Mr. Beat video. Mr. Beat said that he was a friend of his from college. And, I mean, he's running, but he's not running. He has, his campaign website is pretty much like, oh, I'm just doing certain things. Like here's this thing. His website is like, why you shouldn't vote for me. Like, why everyone shouldn't vote for me. I've never even run for school board. I'm not a lawyer, political science, or whatever. Why Republicans shouldn't vote for me. I'm a Democrat. Why Democrats shouldn't vote for me. I worked for oil before. Well, I think my wife should mention I'm good at poker. I'm not really qualified to be president. So, I mean, I guess he's running a satirical campaign, but he's also running as like I'm a Joe Schmo. I'm a normal guy. I'm not a career politician. I'm a cool boy. So yeah, that's pretty much Ryan's presidential campaign. So yeah, now let's talk about the main topic of this video. The 4th Democratic presidential debate. Now, overall this debate was kind of lax. Because the thing is, at this point in the debates, you're not really getting the whole crowd anymore. They've successfully tried to narrow the field down so that you only know certain amounts of people at this point. And they might say, well, I mean, come on, it's still 12 candidates. 12 people is still a lot of people. Well, I mean, yeah, but when, 3 or 4 of them are the same candidates, it's not really good. Julian Castro and Amy Klobuchar, and, really, at this point, there's a lot of these guys, they didn't even, for example, Amy Klobuchar. I'm going to steal a Trump quote and say this for fair. First of all, Amy shouldn't even be on the stage. She 100% should not be on the stage. The fact that she got on the stage is a fluke. It's very simple. She got on the stage because of a fluke. In the 3rd debate, Tulsi was polling higher than Castro and Klobuchar. And should Tulsi have been included in the debate, and they actually had the top 10 candidates, Klobuchar would not have been on that debate. The top 10 would have been Biden, then to Castro, with Gabbard included. She should have been on the debate stage, not Amy Klobuchar. And there's probably a whole lot more interesting candidates that could have been on the stage, but didn't. For example, Bill de Blasio. He dropped out recently, yes, but he would have been a whole lot more interesting than Amy Klobuchar. Amy Klobuchar is a nothing. Hell, even John Delaney would have probably been more interesting. Because John Delaney is at the very least willing to borrow time from the other candidates. Amy's like, I'm a cool soccer mom. Cool, bro. And, the fact that Amy's still running just shows that she's either full of herself, or the Democrats are still trying to do their little game where they're like, oh, but we'll split the votes here, here, and here, so that Bernie won't be able to win in these states. Ha ha ha. But, I mean, it's ugh. Amy, why are you still in the race? Many people have been just trying to say, at this point, everybody should just drop out except for, the top 5. And everyone's like, at this point, it's really up. I mean, a lot of people aren't even saying that. A lot of people are just saying that at this point, everybody should drop out except for Warren and Biden. Because Warren's in the lead and Biden's at a close second, and that's not true. The polls aren't 100% accurate. They never have been. They never will be. When you get the information, when you purposefully get information that is incorrect, you're going to report incorrect information. That's the truth. When you poll older white Democrats who are apolitical, obviously those two will be at the top. But if you poll younger, more politically active Democrats and or independents that will vote in the Democratic primary, Bernie gets to be on the top 100%. But the thing is, you're not really going to get that. Like, I mean, if you wanted to be honest, and you wanted me to actually be point blank and say, the debate should really only be like 4 or 5 candidates. Like, let's say you said, oh, there has to be 5 candidates on this debate stage. You get to pick the top 5. I'd very easily pick the 5 with the most momentum. Bernie, Tulsi, Yang, Warren, and the thing is, I'm not 100% sure who's the 5th. It's either Pete Buttigieg or Kamala Harris. One of the two. I'm not sure which. Maybe Pete. It's probably Pete. Pete and Kamala keep fighting for that viable spot, but they don't 100% get to be in the top 4. These two just keep fighting for it. But anyways, overall, how did the debate go? Like, again, I said, it's not 100% the best. But how did each of the candidates do? Very simple. Amy Klobuchar lost. Just being very point blank. Amy lost. I don't think she did good at all. I stated in my video with, like, Niall Elkham and all the other people, it'll be a link in the description or something. But I don't think Amy did well. Well, very simple reasons why. One, again, her campaign is, I'm against the Bernie Medicare for all. I'm against the free college. I'm against all this stuff. Democrats love running against something. I gotta run against Donald Trump. I gotta run against, this evil Republican. I gotta run against this. Running for something is how you win. You can't just run against something. When Republicans do it, they can actually, they word running against something as running for something. Like, they can't just say, I'm against gay marriage. So they say, oh, I run for family values. You have to word it in a way that you're for something. Even Pete Buttigieg gets it sometimes. Like, he's like, oh, I run for the freedom of choice. You get to choose your health care. But, like, Amy, you're not doing that well. You don't really have any breakout moments. And the thing is, like, she kind of tried to get some breakout moments. But she didn't. Amy Klobuchar has, like, she made, like, a couple of mom jokes. And she had some moments where she was, like, in tears for some reason. Like, and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Nobody cares. Nobody cares about you. Nobody cares. Again, the fact that you're on the stage is a fluke. It's like Doug Jones when he ran against Roy Moore. You're on the stage not due to any actual political reasons that you were so popular that you were able to get on the stage. You're on here because of a fluke. If a domino didn't fall in line at one point, you wouldn't even be here. Doug Jones, it had to be a pedophile running against him. And for you, it just had to be the Democrats really just didn't want Tulsi in that one debate. Now, while I have, Amy Klobuchar on the mind, let me just make a brief thing here about one thing Bill Maher is trying to do. Bill Maher, we all know he's a faux aggressive, he's fake, nobody likes him, and blah, blah, blah. The thing he's trying to do is he's trying to, for some reason, make Amy Klobuchar a compromise candidate between the left wing and the centrist wing of the Democratic Party. Now, here's why that won't work. Compromise candidates are supposed to make both sides happy. I know a thing or two about compromise candidates. In 1916, progressives, like the Progressive Party, and wanted to get back with its old GF, the Republican Party. So, here's what happened. Progressives said, we want Teddy Roosevelt to be our nominee. Republicans offered a compromise by having a moderate progressive be their candidate. But here's the thing. You see, progressive. He was a progressive, but he wasn't like as progressive as Teddy Roosevelt. Usually that's how you win. You get someone who's actually progressive, but not as progressive as Bernie. If you want to have a compromise candidate, that's how it works. So, compromise candidate would be Liz Warren. That would be a compromise candidate. She's the compromise candidate, not Amy Klobuchar. She's the I give up and Democrats, you have no other choice candidate. Amy would be Hillary Clinton 2.0. A lot of people like to say Elizabeth Warren is Hillary Clinton 2.0. That's not true. She's way too on the left on that. Amy would be Hillary Clinton 2.0. But anyways, the candidates that did subpar were Tom Steyer and Joe Biden. Which sucks because Tom Steyer had to make or break it in this debate. I think he's going to be the next one too, to be honest. So, Tom Steyer, what did he say? Well, he agreed with Bernie. He talked about impeachment. He talked about his dad. That's it, really. Now, Biden, he graduated from loser to subpar because this debate, he actually had a bit more of a fight to him. Like, he was more of a fighter this debate. But it wasn't too much of a fighter, and he still kept fucking up and having awkward moments. Like, for example, his awkward moment where he was like, I got you those votes, you stupid bitch. Liz, you're a dumb broad. You better appreciate me or you're getting this hand. Like, that's what he did. That was his thing. That was a weird moment. He didn't talk about the phonogram, I'll give him that. But I mean, he had some of these weird moments for some reason. Now, there were a couple of candidates that I felt did fine. Buttigieg, Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, Julian Castro, and Robert O'Rourke. I think they all did fine. But they didn't have any breakout moments. They didn't have any moments that I was like oomph. I like them in this moment. They had flop moments, obviously, but they didn't have any moments that were like too bad. Like, the worst was probably when Kamala Harris was saying, Liz, will you join me in trying to get Trump banned from Twitter? And then Liz responded with like, no, actually, I'm here talking about the very real and very problematic issues of monopolies and trust busting. We need to enact these trust busting laws that Teddy Roosevelt had enacted so that we can stop these, big tech monopolies. But I mean, we gotta ban Trump from Twitter, Liz. Join me. Like, it's like, what? This is the most important political issue. The issue that's polling at 70%. We just gotta get Trump banned from Twitter. The Midwest, believe it or not, the Midwest didn't actually vote for Trump in droves because of the fact that Hillary Clinton was banned on TPP. No. They didn't. They voted for Trump because Hillary Clinton didn't want to ban Trump from Twitter, to be honest. Did you know that? I actually know the truth. So yeah, that's really weird and really stupid. And most of the other candidates in this category, they didn't have like breakout moments again. Like, they didn't have any moments that are like, oh, I like these guys in these moments. They just have really weird moments. Like when Robert talks about this. The Kevin's like, we're gonna bring the police officers to your house if you don't give us your AR-15. It's like, what? That's not gonna get you people on your side, Robert. Okay. Now these are the ones that I say did alright, or I put them in this category called semi-winners. They did well. Tulsi Gabbard. She didn't get that much chance to talk, but when she did talk about a lot of important issues. But you can tell multiple times during the debate, Tulsi tried to talk about, like, she tried to go after Elizabeth Warren. Because we all know, in all of the debates that Tulsi Gabbard's been a part of, she has went after one candidate, slowly working her way up to the top. First, she did a test run with Tim Ryan. Then, she worked up to Kamala Harris. Now, she's going up to face off against Elizabeth Warren. But all the times that she tried to go after Elizabeth Warren, she was cut off. Like, they were always like, we'll go right back to commercial break. It's like, okay. That was weird. But I mean, of course you did it because it's Tulsi. Who cares if Tulsi gets ignored in the debate? But she did it a couple of times. But I mean, otherwise, she did fine on a lot of the issues. And she took her time to call out the mainstream media. Now, personally, I'm not entirely sure. Like, this leads into my biggest problem with that whole Tulsi boycott thing. If Tulsi did not try to threaten to boycott the debate, would she have gotten more time? Maybe. Or at least she probably wouldn't have been cut off as much. Okay. The person right above her is Andrew Yang. Andrew Yang, this is the debate performance that many people wanted him to do in the first debate. Yang was very specific on policy. He brought in the jokes. He did really well. He showed, like, hey, I'm a good candidate. He talked about drug decriminalization. He talked about UBI. He talked about pulling people from the other side of the aisle to his side when he talked about him turning a Yang ganger into a... Like, he turned a Trump supporter into a Yang ganger. And, like, Yang, he brings jokes into the debate as well. Like, I mean... And he also had some scuffling with, like, Warren, Robert, and... Like, he did some scuffling with Warren and Robert. Because Elizabeth Warren, I think she point blank said, the rise of automation is not an issue. To which Yang is like, yes it is. The fact that, and again, it's a bit problematic with Warren. The fact that it's weird. I was like really mad at Warren. I'm like, what are you talking about? Automation is not an issue. And then she talks about like, yes, but our trade policy is like, can it be both? We give away manufacturing jobs and we give away manufacturing jobs to robots and people in India. We could do both. Speaking of Warren, she's right above Yang. But I guess it's mostly due to the fact that Warren had more time than Yang. I think out of all the candidates, she spoke the most. I think if not her, then Biden spoke more than her. But that's also because a lot of people, due to the fact that she's perceived as the front runner now, even though she literally lost her 0.1% like margin points from Biden. Like she had like 0.2% more than Joe Biden. And now all of a sudden she's number 2 again. It's like, really? Technically Joe's still the front runner. But I mean, I guess whatever. Warren actually tries to be substantive, at the very least, with her front-runner status. Biden, he's not really front-runner-ish. Warren was more focused on policy. I mean, that's her bread and butter. Her bread and butter has always been like, I'm policy, 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 policy. Like, I will always be focused on policy. Like, you know, Warren's whole new slogan, I have a plan for that, I have a plan for that, I have a plan for that. I mean, he does kind of strike a chord when Warren does say, I have a plan for that, because, well, it shows people that she has a plan for that. And in this debate, she did show she has plans for that, except for on healthcare, where she fumbled a bit. Like, every time she's asked about her healthcare plan, they always ask her about a middle class tax raise. She can very easily talk about it in a very simple way. Yes, taxes would go up, But the overall cost of healthcare and taxes would go down. Because your taxes and your healthcare costs would be bundled into one, and your copays and premiums gone. So you'd overall pay less. But Warren just keeps dodging the question. I'm like, Warren, why are you so bad at this? Come on, why are you so freaking bad at this? But of course, the number one is very simple. It always will be, because he's the best at the debates. Bernie does well at debates, so inevitably he's going to be the winner. Why? Very simple. He had the jokes, as I said before with Yang. He had the policies. He was very clear on his policies. He was very upfront. He was very confronting, and he was overall straightforward guy. And Bernie, this debate was seen by many as like this is the make or break. Because, Bernie just had his heart attack, and, they needed to show, like, is Bernie back? And guess what? Bernie's back, my friends, and he's not alone. It's pretty much all I have to say on that, because, what else do I have to say? Okay, well, to be fair, I will say one thing. I'm sick and tired of Bernie doing the whole, like, I wrote the damn bill. And it's like, dude, we get it. It was funny. It was great the first time because it was an actual, like, out of nowhere experience. Like, it was out of nowhere, and it was like, oh, cool. Like, remember when he first said, I wrote the damn bill? Like, it was like, we finally include dental care and, but you don't know that, Bernie. But you know the better. I do know that. I wrote the damn bill. Like, that was the whole reason why it was so, why it was so good. Bernie, you need to actually have, like, a moment like that again. You can't just keep rehashing this one. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that bell to be notified when a future video comes out. And if you're interested in more content from me, you can go to my website or follow me on Facebook, Twitter, or Quora, or check out my articles on the Independent Political Report.